Seen you all over the place.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another commemoration of this most important day in our history, Memorial Day, the day on which we honor our fallen heroes who have given their all in defense of freedom, justice, and democracy for this great nation of ours. The Lord has provided a beautiful day. A beautiful day. All the rain we've had, everybody was sweating this. Don't rain on my parade. I mean, you couldn't ask for more, right? I mean, it's not hot, it's not cold, sun's shining. Lord, praise the Lord. We love it. As I say, I want to welcome you all, and especially our veterans groups. I'm going to call upon right now the junior ROTC who will post our colors.
Have everybody stand.
Please stand. Those covered, salute.
Those uncovered, your hand over your heart.
They know that.
I know they do. Wow.
Ready, good, both, mark.
And salute.
Left, mark. Go, oh. Present, arm.
Hey. Down there. Yeah.
Carry, colors. Ready, good. Left, march. Oh, march.
Two. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the junior ROTC and Major Tom McGrath, who leads them so admirably. And now I'd like to introduce Paul Hannon, who will sing the national anthem, accompanied by the wonderful municipal band under the leadership of Jeff Dobler. Paul?
And salute.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, yea, proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Thank you, Paul. As usual, a beautiful Irish tenor did a wonderful job. No, he's not actually that beautiful, he just did a beautiful job. And now, our chaplain from Post 451, American Legion Squad Post, will give us our invocation. Robert Bailey, please. Where did Robert go? Oh, there he is.
Uncover!
O God of hosts, we bow our heads in thankfulness for the victories that Thou hast granted us, to us and those people who have united us to stamp out the evils of aggressions, intolerance, and greed. We beseech Thee to bring the blessings of understandings to the families and friends in this and other lands, of those who have given their lives that may be free. Grant, O God, that those closest to the fallen may mingle that pain of their losses with ennobling the light sacrifice for civilization. Sacrifice for a better world, for this and other generations yet unborn. Grant us too, O God, the courage to so live with the family of nations around the world that and the strife will be the beginning of enduring peace. Grant us patience in planning with our fellow men and women in the world, which nations may resolve their differences by peaceful means. Touch Thou the souls of people in every land with the enduring light of wisdom, so they may form a brotherhood, which will strive to further the arts of peace under laws and ethics blessed by the love. Grant us now Thy continued blessing upon unity and strength that makes victories possible in war, that we may win greater victories of peace. Amen.
Amen. Cover!
That was Robert's baptism under fire. He didn't know he had to do this morning. And he did an admirable job, so please give him a hand. I appreciate it very much. He's not a green veteran, but he's green to the American Legion, so we appreciate his stepping up. You're not a Marine, are you, Robert?
Yes, I am.
Oh my God! Well, what do they say? Adapt, improvise, overcome. The Marines stepped up again. Hoorah! Now I would like to recognize all of our veterans groups here. Leading our parade this morning was the Post 451 squad, Frank and Edward Squat Post, American Legion, down there on May Avenue and Squat Legion Avenue by Ames Field. And we thank you, gentlemen. Who is the commander this year?
Rob Strader.
Okay. Behind you.
Rob?
Right behind you.
Behind you.
Looking around. Hey, Rob, are you going to be like Tony, commander for life?
No.
Yeah, you coward. And next, the DAV group. Where is the DAV group? Down with there they are. DAV. Stand up and be recognized, gentlemen. Who's the commander this year? Brian Sonder? Ponder.
There he's coming.
Who's he coming?
Yeah.
Come on up, Brian. We know you're here. You can't hide. You can run, but you can't hide. He's got his guide dog. Good. Brian Ponder, commander of the DAV, Chapter 23, Danny Bruce Chapter, down on Ohio Street. Give him a hand. Thank you, Brian. And next, who's next? The VFW or you guys?
VFW. Which one?
VFW. Someplace. Where are you guys?
There they are, right there.
Keith Everly. Oh, that's right. You're combined now. I remember that now. Now, thank you, Keith. Appreciate your group too. They've been in business. My grandfather, on my mother's side, was a charter member of the local VFW, and they organized that back in the 30s. And I know he's on name is on the quilt down there on the wall, and I know he drank many times down there to get that quilt paid for. Thank you, guys. Last but not least, our own Post 37, under the able command of Ron Pittman. This is Ron's swan song, as he will illuminates you later on in the ceremony. As likewise is mine. Thank you, Ron, for all your many, many, many years of service.
You too, Bob.
And even though you were a Marine, I can still love you. I want to thank the Coast Guard this morning for bringing their vessel. Now, that's not the only vessel they got, but it's one of them. And they led our parade, and I really appreciate those guys coming out. I don't know the station chief's name. Who are you here?
He's not, no.
Topped out, huh? Well, anyway, thank him personally for me because we really appreciate you bringing the vessel down. I know my old buddy Dave, he's an old, well, I got a lot to say about Dave, but I really appreciate it. Thank you. They are the only active military unit locally, so that was appreciated. And now I'm going to move right on in to the General Logan's order, which established, I'm not going to talk about any history because everybody cusses me out when I do.
Can we sit down?
You got, why don't everybody sit down?
Yeah, thank you.
I mean, I like you to come at attention when I'm talking, but you can sit down. I know you old cats got to sit down. Hard on the back. General Logan's Memorial Order. And I encourage each and every one of you to investigate a little bit of the history of General Logan. I've read that before and talked about him, but this guy was a remarkable man. We stand in front of the GAR monument here, Grand Army of the Republic. He formed that organization to care for widows and orphans and wounded veterans of that Civil War conflict. And I encourage you to read some of his history. He's a remarkable person. And here's his order established in this day. General Logan's Memorial Order, Headquarters, Grand Army of the Republic, Washington, D.C., May 5th, 1868. The 30th day of May, 1868, is designated for the purpose of strewing with flowers or otherwise decorating the graves of comrades who died in defense of their country during the late rebellion, and whose bodies now lie in almost every city, village, and hamlet and churchyard in the land. In this observance, no form of ceremony is prescribed, but post and comrades will, in their own way, arrange such fitting services and testimonials of respect as circumstances may permit. We are organized, comrades, as our regulations tell us, for the purpose, among other things, of preserving and strengthening those kind and fraternal feelings which have bound together the soldiers, sailors, and Marines who, no Air Force there, and who united to suppress the late rebellion. What can aid more to assure this result by cherishing tenderly the memory of our heroic dead, who made their breasts a barricade between our country and its foes. Their soldiers' lives were the reveille of freedom to erase and change, and their death a tattoo of rebellious tyranny in arms. We should guard their graves with sacred vigilance. All that the consecrated wealth and taste of the nation can add to their adornment and security is but a fitting tribute to the memory of her slain defenders. Let no wanton foot tread rudely upon such hallowed grounds. Let pleasant paths invite the coming and going of reverent visitors and fond mourners. Let no vandalism of avarice or neglect, no ravages of time, testify to the present or to the coming generations that we have forgotten as a people the cost of a free and undivided republic. If other eyes grow dull and other hands slack and other hearts cold in this solemn trust, ours shall keep it well, as long as the light and warmth of life shall remain in us. Let us then, at the time appointed, gather around their sacred remains and garland the passionless mounds above them with the choicest flowers of springtime. Let us raise above them the dear old flag they saved from dishonor. Let us in this solemn presence renew our pledges to aid and assist those who have left among us as sacred charges upon the nation's gratitude, the soldiers and sailors, widows and orphans. It is the purpose of the Commander-in-Chief to inaugurate this observance with the hope that it will be kept up from year to year while a survivor of the war remains to honor the memory of his departed comrades. He earnestly desires the public press to call attention to this order and lend its friendly aid, bringing it to the notice of comrades in all parts of the country in time for the simultaneous compliance therewith. Department commanders will use every effort to make this order effective. By command of John A. Logan, Commander-in-Chief, General, Union Army of the Republic. I'm going to say one thing about General Logan. General Grant, who was in charge of that army, had a lot of hangers-on who were also generals who didn't do squat. But General Logan was a person who really, truly was a warrior. And believe me, his activities helped secure this republic. Please read his history. And now, the municipal band under the fine leadership of Jeff Tobler will play the Battle Hymn of the Republic, during which the wreaths will be placed at the monument here, the GAR monument. Paul?
Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He hath loosed the faithful lightning with his terrible swift sword. His truth is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. In the beauty of the lilies, Christ was born across the sea, with a glory in his bosom that transfigures you and me. As he died to make men holy, let us live to make men free. Our God is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on.
Yes, he did that pretty good. He certainly did, and he always does. Thank you, Paul. And now I'd like to introduce our featured speaker, our guest speaker today, by the man by the name of Stephen Williams. He is a person I met quite by accident, and serendipity had it that we didn't have a speaker this year for various reasons, and Stephen agreed to step forward and do this. And I'd like to read his bio, if I might. And this is a synopsis of his bio, actually. He is married, has grown children. Stephen was born in New York City and came to Michigan City in 1989 after serving 10 years in the United States Air Force. That makes him special to my heart. During his time in service, he worked in the Minuteman missile program at Warren Air Force Base in Cheyenne, Wyoming, where he spent much of his service career. He then trained on the cruise missile program and served at the RAF base Greenham Common in England. This was a very controversial assignment due to the fact that this was the first time nuclear missiles were deployed in the European theater. And Stephen reports there were many, many protests outside the base, but despite the protests, the deployment did result in the bringing of the then Soviets to the peace table and the signing of the INF Treaty with Mikhail Gorbachev. Here in LaPorte County, he has worked as project coordinator with the Solid Waste District, as well as serving as lieutenant commander during the early days of the juvenile center known as Camp Summit, out by where I live. And I watch every night for those guys. He then returned to New York to work at the Children's Home of Poughkeepsie, New York, and also worked for the IBM Corporation in New York, and also was the executive director of the Hudson Valley Raptor Center, which is a sanctuary for birds of prey. Stephen then returned to Michigan City and became a long-term substitute teacher at the A.K. Smith Career Center. Stephen regards himself as a poet and has won the United States Air Force Tops in Blue Award for a poem entitled I Defend the Siren. I proudly present to you a man of many talents, Stephen Williams. Stephen?
Hello, fellow Americans. Got to change glasses here. Memorial Day. Here we all gather on a day much like any other day. However, today is different. It is different to different people in different ways. As a veteran, today is a day when people who recognize I have served will thank me for my service. Perhaps even shake my hand as the lady did yesterday. All good and fine, but as she walked away, she said, "Enjoy your day tomorrow." I wanted to tell her, but I didn't. We veterans know today is not our day. Today is a day observed for those for whom Hallmark can offer no cards. And even the most expensive smartphones can make no calls, send no texts to those we stand in honor of today. How many here believe in magic? Or what my friend Bob Hawk here calls serendipity. You heard him say that. Well, as my invisible friend standing here with me today, and has since my childhood, will tell you all, I know magic and serendipity is real. And it is the reason I've been asked to come before you today and speak. You see, Bob and I met a few weeks back because I saw he was wearing a veteran's hat and an Air Force hat to boot. Since I too can now wear an Air Force veteran's hat, well, in that chance meeting, we spoke of many things. He asked if I was a member of the local American Legion post. When I said no, he asked if I was thinking about joining. I said I might, because to say no just sounded wrong. I knew of the post because another veteran I met by chance, Ron Pittman, I knew was the post commander, and now I can say he is my post commander, as I did recently join. Anyway, for whatever reason, Bob asked me if I would be interested in being a guest speaker in today's event, as the original person backed out at the last minute. Serendipity. I said I certainly would. You see, though the fear of public speaking is most common, I was cured of that fear in 1985. So if you appreciate anything you hear me say today, or everything, then please be sure to thank Bob. On the other hand, if you don't appreciate my speech, well, don't blame me, blame Bob. As a public speaker, I want to thank you for laughing, and I'm glad you did on cue, because I always feel, as I'm sure most do, that if I can get you to laugh, then I'm good to go. So go on I shall. However, my words from this point on will be appropriately more solemn. But first, will our Vietnam vets please raise your hands and be recognized? Thank you all for your service. And now will all others present, along with me, say, welcome home. Welcome home. Welcome home. When I came back from England after 2 years as a Glickham warrior, the custom agent said, "You cleared through, Sergeant. Welcome home." Those words meant so much to me, and I know those we just honored didn't hear them the way they deserved to hear them, so I'm glad you joined with me. Welcome home. It was 40 years ago this past Thursday, coincidentally, May 23rd, that I first took the oath of enlistment. We couldn't ship out that day, so I spent my first night in a bunk at Fort Hamilton in Brooklyn, New York. That night, I heard taps sounded. I had always heard taps in Army movies and some radio stations. I'm old enough that they used to play that at the end of the day when they shut everything down, didn't run 24/7. From that day forward, every day for the following 10 years that I spent on base, I heard taps sounded. In March 1985, on a day like any other day, I heard it being sounded and I wept. Abraham Lincoln said, "The mystic chords of memory stretching from every battlefield and patriot grave to every living heart should swell into a mighty chorus of remembrance, gratitude, and rededication on this solemn occasion." One of my favorite poets, Edgar A. Guest, wrote, "The finest tribute we can pay unto our hero dead today is not of speech or roses red, but living, throbbing hearts instead, that shall renew the pledge they sealed up with death upon the battlefield, that freedom's flag shall bear no stain, and free men wear no tyrant's chain." I told you my fear of public speaking was cured in 1985. I know this for a fact because in the days following March 5th, 1985, I was standing before a crowded assembly in the base chapel at RAF Greenham Common, and I was delivering the eulogy for my dear friend and brother-in-arms, Sergeant Andre Johnson. It was on the morning of March 5th, I and my roommate were sound asleep. Without warning, the base klaxon was blaring. A klaxon is like what you'll be hearing about 11 next Saturday here in Michigan City. I often wonder what would happen if a tornado were to hit at that exact time. Most may tend to ignore it. Well, that foggy English morning, the sound that woke us could not be ignored. For us, that was the call to arms. That meant we were going to war, preparing for it. For us, that meant the possibility we would have to release the weapons we were trained to maintain and defend. And it also meant that it was apocalypse now. For we were the first breed of Glickham warriors sent by order of our Commander-in-Chief Ronald Reagan to deploy nuclear weapons for the first time on foreign soil in the European theater. Cruise missiles with nuclear warheads and the ability to avoid radar and strike targets, which at that time was the enemy to me and all my band of brothers and sisters who were cold warriors. Our missiles, the same Tomahawk missiles as we saw used in the Gulf, were capable of the same accuracy, for they were guided by, at the time, what was top secret, GPS. Glickham was everything I joined the Air Force not to do. Digging foxholes, learning to fight in combat, but I learned from the best as our training staff were all Vietnam veterans, and I don't mean desk jockeys. Our mission, take 5 units, or as we call it in the Air Force flights, each with 4 launch vehicles carrying 4 missiles apiece and 2 launch control centers. But that day, March 5th, as far as we knew, we were going real world. And for us, that meant most assuredly the end of life on this planet. I recently posted in a group for those who served at Greenham Common that they never told us what action to take after we fired those missiles. I suppose there was no plan to follow. When the klaxon went off, my roommate and I looked at each other and said, "Aw, shucks." Well, it isn't exactly the words we used, but we immediately put on our battle dress uniforms and grabbed our war bags and headed for the weapons storage area. My flight recall pager was going off, and since I was on standby for the alert crew, my radio was going off. This was all too real. Till we processed in with our authenticator code and the gate was unlocked and the truth came out. This was simply an exercise. Normally we knew officially or through the grapevine unofficially to expect an exercise recall. That morning in 1985, the base commander decided to test our response time as if we were actually at war. A friend of mine told me he had something to tell me but couldn't. He looked shaken and pale. I went to someone I thought might know, and he told me he did, but I needed to come in and close the door. Andre was killed this morning in a motorcycle accident. Paul knew because his wife worked at the base hospital and was there when they came to get his dental records to ID him. The higher-ups want to keep it hushed till this exercise is over. My sorrow turned to anger. Andre was my first roommate at Greenham. Having arrived just before me, he was due to be leaving at the time, living off base with his fiancée. He and I were close, but honestly, everyone that knew him was close to him. He was that kind of person. We all loved him, and I hope he knew that. I never thought to say it in words, but I said it in the base chapel. My fear was that I'd be emotional, so I prayed for the strength to speak clearly and not break down. I wrote of how many had died on battlefields in many wars to bring us to these moments of relative peace, and their blood should not be in vain for us to pretend and play the game as if we were at war. The base chaplain refused to let me read those words, said I was attacking the base commander. I was. As far as I'm concerned, my friend may very well be alive today if he had not rode with urgency to respond to what seemed to be a real-world crisis. He did allow me to read a redacted version and the poem I wrote, which began, "We knew we'd soon be parting like morning sky and moon, but goodbyes came unexpected, too final, far too soon." My message today, I believe, would be the message that our fallen would want us to know. If it's not fatal, it's not serious. Stop arguing over what ultimately is trivial matters compared to having your voice suddenly stilled. To lose a loved one is sorrow, especially when it comes without warning. Being unprepared by tragic means is devastating. September 11th used to be simply a day as any other, but was transformed forever when those planes struck the towers. I believe in the seconds before they hit, very possibly, two people who knew each other and worked together for years may have been arguing over something stupid. And strangers riding up in the elevator may have shared their last laugh over small talk. Let us remember on this day, when the smell of barbecue and the laughter of the start of summer spreads across our homes and across our country, let's stop feeding into the hate and division which weapons of mass distraction only an evil entity could use to defeat us. Our fight is not against flesh and blood. Remember to offer silence at the traditional time of 3 o'clock this afternoon. And now, in closing, one last poem I feel captures what I am sure many of us, especially veterans, feel about a day like today. It's entitled, "Just a Common Soldier." A Soldier Died Today by A. Lawrence Vanecourt. He was getting old and punchy. His hair was falling fast. He sat around the Legion, telling stories of the past, of a war he fought in and the deeds he had done, in his exploits with his buddies. They were heroes, every one. And though sometimes to his neighbors his tales became a joke, all his legion buddies listened, for they knew of where he spoke. But we'll hear his tale no longer, for old Bill passed away, and the world's a little poorer, for a soldier died today. He will not be mourned by many, just his children and his wife, for he lived an ordinary and quite uneventful life. Held a job and raised a family, quietly going on his way, and the world won't note his passing, though a soldier died today. When politicians leave this earth, their bodies lie in state, while thousands note their passing and proclaim that they were great. Papers tell their whole life stories from the time that they were young, but the passing of a soldier goes unnoticed and unsung. Is the greatest contribution to welfare of our land a guy who breaks his promises and cons his fellow man, or the ordinary fellow who in times of war and strife goes off to serve his country and offers up his life? A politician's stipend and the style in which he lives are sometimes disproportionate to the service that he gives, while the ordinary soldier who offered up his all is paid off with a medal, perhaps a pension small. It's so easy to forget them, for it was so long ago that the old bills of our country went to battle, but we know it was not the politicians with the compromise employs who won for us the freedom our country now enjoys. Should you find yourself in danger with your enemies at hand, would you want a politician with his ever-shifting stand? Or would you prefer a soldier who was sworn to defend his home, his kin, and country, and would fight until the end? He was just a common soldier, and his ranks are growing thin, but his presence should remind us we may need his likes again. For when the countries are in conflict, then we find the soldier's part is to clean up all the troubles that the politicians start. If we cannot do him honor while he's here to hear the praise, then at least give him homage to the ending of his days. Perhaps just a simple headline that would say, our country is in mourning, for a soldier died today. God bless America again. Thank you all for your time and your patience.
Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate that, my friend.
Thank you, rocks, Bob. You're okay.
Thank you very much, Steve. We really appreciate it. I neglected to introduce a couple of people here a while ago. One, by the name of Ron Heyer, who's a leader, first adjutant, second vice commander, junior vice commander of a group known as the John Alton No. 8 Sons of the Union Veterans of the Civil War. That's a mouthful. Ron, stand up, take a bow. This will probably be the last year Ron's going to be here, because he said he's dragging up, moving out west with all the wagon trains. Sitting right next to him is a very old friend of mine, a man who rescued me in my hour of need on the beautiful Lake Michigan when I was in dire straits. A former, now the Coast Guard leads our parade this morning. He's a former station chief here of the Coast Guard unit. Dave Spencer, please, Dave, stand up, take a bow. Dave is a veteran of the Coast Guard, the United States Navy, and the United States Coast Guard. Also, he is a licensed merchant mariner. Now, how do you, and plus he's got a pilot's license. Now, I mean, come on. But thankfully, he didn't become a Marine. Didn't have the nerve, he says, yeah. It's all up here, you know. And now, the municipal band, under the able direction of Jeff Dobler, will play the musical selection, Nearer My God to Thee. After that, the Honor Guard of Post 451 will fire the 21-gun salute to our fallen heroes. And after that, taps will be played by Dave Tyson and Rick Carlson, taps and echo taps. Jeff? Yeah, I will. Everybody please stand.
Honor guard. Attention. Port arms. Present ready. And fire. 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 Port arms. Present arms.
And salute. Two.
Under guard. Port. Arm. Order. Arm.
Thank you, gentlemen. Please be seated. And now, the chaplain of Post 451 will offer our benediction. Robert, please step forward.
Everybody, please stand and remove your covers. Let us pray. Almighty God, giver of all victories, we thank Thee for opportunities which abide in our land, for the guidance in the hour of peril, and the teacher, love, in tender times of need. Help us to remember reverence, the valor, and devotion of our departed comrades, not only those whose bodies consecrate our country soil, but also those whose seat beyond the seas, and those others whose resting places will not be known until the last day, when the deep will have given up its dead. O God, teach us to honor them by ever cherishing the ideas for which they fought. Keep us steadfast in the cause of human rights and liberties, in law and order, and true Americanism. Give us the power to see and the will to do right. Grant that the American Legion may preserve the high ideals for which our comrades died. May Thy merciful blessing rest upon those they left behind. Keep us forever firm in the righteousness, humble of heart, unselfishness, and purpose. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Robert. Appreciate it. Thank you, Robert. His baptism under fire, he is now fully qualified. Now the junior ROTC will retrieve colors.
2, 3. Good. Ready. Good. Under guard. Move. Forward. Move. Breathe in. Move.
And salute.
Up. Mark. Go. Hold. Breathe in. Arm. Forward. Carry. Colors. Ready. Go. Left turn. March. Go. March.
Two.
Order. Order. On. Order. On.
You may be seated. Please. Thank you. Something I like about today, the sun shining so bright, Normally I have to wear glasses to read, but because of the bright sun, I can see all this stuff. It's nice big letters. I don't have to put my glasses on. So I can see you at the same time. That's great. Now, my commander for life, who's now having his slide song, Ronald Pittman, would like to give closing comments. Please, Ron, approach the podium.
Okay. Thank you, Ron. Listen,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I will do that.
Okay. First, we'd like to present 2 medals to the Junior ROTC, the Scholastic Medal and Award and the Military Medal and Award. So if those 2 ladies and gentlemen would please step forward, we'd like to present those medals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I gotta put my glasses on now.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Sun's not that bright. First, the Scholastic Medal is presented to Cadet Lance Corporal Declan Rice of Michigan City High School. Declan?
All right. Okay.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
And the Military Medal of Military Excellence is presented to Cadet Staff Sergeant Jessica Wilhelm of Michigan City High School. Jessica?
That's right.
Hey, me first.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay.
My work is finished here.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to see the turnout we had. To the all of the veterans here today, thank you for coming. You know, every year we grow thinner. When I first started this program years and years ago, when I got 53 years with the Legion this year, and Bob has been my adjutant the whole time, which it's just like having a second wife. And I realized he was in the Air Force, and I was in the Marine Corps. And when the Marine Corps said they were looking for a few good men, they walked right on by Bob. But anyway, but it took all the services and all of us through life, no matter what we was in. I came out of Vietnam. You got a different gentleman and veterans through here. Was in Germany, all over, but it took all of us as a group. I want to thank everybody that's helped put this program on every year. Michigan City Police Department, Fire Department, Cemetery, the Junior ROTC came out and helped us put flags out. We got 1,800 in our area here. The Marine Corps League came out. It's just one thing after another of people that working together that puts this whole program together, seriously. And as to the veterans groups, you can't beat any of them. They're all here for great purposes, and they'll help you in many ways. We don't have the great turnout of members from the past conflicts and stuff like that. Don't know the reason why, but we don't have. Anyway, I would like to say at this time, I would like to call upon the municipal band, I can't see them, if they would play that rendition of all of the service songs, please. That's your song. Stand and salute if you'd like. Yes. Everybody. Yes. Everybody. Very good. Very good. Okay, Bob. All right. Yeah. Gentlemen. All right. Those are the people that paid us. Well, I'd like to thank the municipal band for playing that, and to all the veterans here, and your song that we have played this morning. And like I said, I wanted to thank everyone for coming out today. The weather has been nice. And I want to call Bob up here for just a second, and we'll close this program.
You're not gonna kiss me, are you?
Here we go. Second wife. Anyway, me and Bob, we have been with the Legion so many years, and all the years I have been there, and the 16 times that I have been commander in this program out here, he's been my adjutant, which I'll tell you what, I could not have done the job without him. I honest to God swear that it takes somebody like him. And he's going out this year, I'm going out. We're going to retire and do something. Don't know what yet, but we're going to do something, right or wrong. So anyway, I'd like to say to Bob, thank you.
My pleasure, Ronnie.
All right.
You've been a marvelous guy to serve. You really have.
Yeah, that's the end of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that takes care of our program today. Have a good, safe journey, wherever you're going home, to party, whatever. But remember us and try to come next year for all the veterans, men and women that could not be here. Thank you.